Dumelang, Tsibiki. Welcome to another fire episode of the Mobile School Podcast. Remember, don't like, don't share, don't subscribe, don't tell your friends. Like, nobody cares, bro. So, last week we spoke about how not having energy in South Africa is just going to affect South Africans and like the economy very bad. But what happened this past few days has been uh, crazy because the person that everybody keeps saying is responsible for causing load shedding by being aligned to the Gupta family, Matiko Koko, was supposed to do a few interviews with a few media houses in South Africa, but they all cancelled on him. Actually, when he announced that he was going to do an interview with one of the journalists in South Africa, other journalists came out and said, "How can you do an interview with him?" And we're like, "To get information? Da! Dwe. What the fuck, man? What's going on in South Africa?" Like, I feel like we have such backward thinking journalists who are on a payroll and nobody's trying to talk about it. They support Ramaphosa knowing damn well that he's a failure. Dog, there are people who have failed in life. Ramaphosa is there as a failure, not only to black people. He's not South Africa's worst failure. He's not like Venda's worst failure. He's not like the continent's worst failure. He's the global, the world, the entire world. If they had to choose a failure in life, Ramaphosa is there. Top two, top three, and he's not number two or three. So you have all these journalists that are on his dick. And talking about dick, we have to understand like we cannot even say let's start our own social media news companies like the Young Turks, like Daily Wire, because those companies are starting to remove and demonetize like content that they feel could offend some other people. So you cannot use the R word. You cannot use the other R word. Forced. You cannot also use like what next they're gonna say you can't use the word fat because Lizzo said it's cruel or whatever, and her fucking fans just lost their shit. But which is understandable. We shouldn't be bullying each other on these platforms, but we need to find ways because as black people in South Africa who are facing a choice between white-owned media that's really just not focusing on the problems but focusing on the personalities. Like I don't care how much you hate go dog, but if there was somebody who was CEO or who was in a senior position at Eskom and there was no load shedding during their tenure, you can talk about, oh yeah, but he banned this much uh, diesel. He did this. Like, so what's the option? Should we ban more diesel or should we go for load shedding? And of course, they all gonna agree that no, anything the white dude decides is right, let's go with it, which is that guy writer. But because South African media and especially white journalists, they see the government as a failure only because there's black people. So if you put a white face, they'll be okay with it because there's this mindset that black people are inferior mentally, so they need a white person to look over them and check if they're doing everything. So all white people who support this idiot Reiter who's been causing like load shedding that has led up to stage 6, they will defend him. They will defend him with all their being. Like they don't care. They would complain about crime, but they will still blame the Guptas. They will not blame Ramaphosa, who was tasked when load shedding started, who was tasked to make sure that, hey, look into this thing and come up with solutions. He never did fuck all. That's Ramaphosa. Ramaphosa doesn't do fuck all at all. But when the media decided like they should now ban Coco, it made me realize like, okay, social media, which are privately owned companies or publicly owned companies, but they are run by like some hipsters in Silicon Valley. Even TikTok, let's talk about TikTok, which has been going through a lot of American scrutiny because a lot of Americans feel like it's spyware for the Chinese. They also ban a lot of words. Like they even ban the word white. If you say white creator, they're like, oh, racism. And of course, TikTok has been trying very hard to remove black people. Like we've seen it, we know it. It's a fact. It's a fact. Like they can't deny it. But we need to start coming up with ways to spread information that is trustworthy. And what I mean by that is that we need to start looking at platforms like Telegram, Signal, like all these uh, messaging platforms that are now allowing us to do like videos. Guys, if you can watch a fucking 2-minute video of some guy being chased by soldiers and a dog, and you guys are laughing like on social media, "Oh, Merefi, don't run." You can watch a 2-minute video talking about, hey, this is what Coco did, and if you don't agree, send us an expert who will tell us why they disagree with how Coco did it. Do you know what the fucking expert said when he pulled out of the interview that he was supposed to have with Coco? Oh, I don't want to be associated. Like, dog, fuck your feelings. It's not about your feelings. But they realize there's nothing to do with association. It has everything to do with the fact that they know Coco was onto something. And they blaming him because they are supporting somebody who's been failing, is incapable of making Eskom work, destroying the economy, and they're trying to push us to buy like renewable energy. It's not working in Germany. It's not working anywhere in Europe. So even first world countries have accepted that, oh no, these things are, even the air wind, like the wind turbines that you guys are saying, oh, they need energy, another energy that you guys are trying to cancel. Your cars, your electric cars, for them to charge, there's electricity coming from coal and all the previous energy solutions and sources that we've had to make sure that your car is moving like okay. And to be quite honest with you, we're not doing enough to spread information. All our podcasts are about gossip. Like, how come there's no podcast that focuses on interviewing like people that are doing shit, like electricians? You would think by now there would be a podcast. Do you know how much money you would make if you were a podcast that just interviewed people twice or 3 times a week talking about the electricity crisis? There's so much electricity crisis happening in South Africa. There should just be one podcast just focusing on that, interviewing experts, interviewing people who've signed NDAs, who can be like anonymous. Like, there's so much we can do, but we're not doing enough because we just love tweeting our lives away. And then we're going to reach a point where we're going to tweet and the journalists are going to say you're bullying me. And then if you tweet something against the journalist or the CEO of Eskom, the journalist can report you and you're going to be removed. So people always say no news is good news, but in this instance, no news is bad news, man. We're going straight to the dogs. And then that's the thing with clever blacks who are like, oh yeah, the ANC is incapable of running all these state-owned enterprises. Yeah, like if the ANC is failing to run SOEs, then let's fucking get rid of the ANC, but let's not sell our SOEs. Now you're complaining about flights from Cape Town to Joburg. It's almost 3 grand. It used to be like 1,500. It's almost 3 grand. And Malema has been saying, like, if you guys think it's gonna be better, it's gonna be more expensive, you guys won't be able to afford it. It's gonna be for only rich people who are mainly white people in South Africa. Look, this is not a racist podcast. No, not at all. This is not a podcast because I'm not a podcaster. I'm an independent TED Talk. Habash.